Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today's awesome guest is Tricia Nelson. Now, she lost 50 pounds by identifying and healing the underlying causes of her emotional eating. Tricia has spent over 30 years researching the hidden causes of the addictive personality and is an emotional eating expert. She is also the author of the #1 best-selling book, Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. Tricia is also the host of the popular podcast, The Heal Your Hunger Show, and is a highly regarded speaker. She has been featured on NBC, CBS, KTLA, Fox, and Discovery Health, and now she's on High Energy Girl. So let's go say hello to Tricia. Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluhite, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Hey everyone, this is Tracy, and I have a special announcement. In order for me to help more women age stronger, I have created a 90-day one-on-one coaching program. And the goal here is to teach women over 50 how to age stronger while burning fat and boosting energy without going hungry or living in the gym. If you'd like more information, please hit me up at tracy@highenergygirl.com or friend me on Facebook and send me a message. I have a goal of transforming 1,000 women in the next year, and I hope you are one of them. Hey Tricia, thanks for coming on the show today.
I am so happy to be here, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
It's really good to talk to you, and I'm really excited to hear your message. So for the listeners that don't know you, will you please just let them know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My work was really informed by my own journey of being really out of control with food. So from an early age, I ate a lot, and I loved food. So food was kind of like the big highlight and excitement for me, which, isn't a bad thing, except that I gained weight really easily. And so as I got older, I put on weight. I had this big tummy, and I would scrunch up this big roll of fat in my tummy, and I'd imagine slicing it off. You know how you can slice fat off the side of a steak? I'm like, well, it's only fat. Like, I ought to be able to slice it off. Thank God I didn't try that. And, I thought about getting a disease where I'd automatically lose weight. I wouldn't have to diet. Or, at one point I thought, I know, I'll join the army and they'll force me to exercise and go through boot camp, because I wasn't a big fan of exercising because I felt big all the time. So anyway, that's an example of the crazy thoughts that I had because I felt out of control with food and with my weight. So I tried lots of things to overcome it. I tried diets, of course, and exercise programs and what I call pills, potions, and lotions. And then I went to 12-step programs and therapy. I went to an eating disorders therapist twice a week for a year at one point. So I was really trying hard to deal with this problem, but nothing I tried worked. I mean, I could lose weight. I mean, when you go on a diet, you feel all excited about it. So I could lose weight for a time, but I'd always bust out and gain the weight. And I had like 5 different sizes of pants in my closet because I never knew where I was, always up and down the scale. So of course I was holding out hope that I would fit into those skinny jeans again, but they were usually collecting dust in the back of my closet. So it was just a big struggle. And I felt really like a loser, frankly. I felt like a loser because I tried so many things, but I always failed. And so basically I came to a point, Tracy, where I just felt like something's got to give. And and I was very blessed to meet somebody who showed me that food, my attacking it at the symptom level, at the food level, the weight level, wasn't going to serve me because I was an emotional eater, and I had to dig deeper and look at the underlying causes. And that's what I did. He helped me to do that as a mentor. And then after that, because I got free and was able to, I've been in a thin body. I was 50 pounds overweight when at the worst of my struggles. And thank God, by the grace of God, for 30 plus years, I've been in a thin body. So immediately after I found this solution, I started really helping other people. And so that's where Heal Your Hunger came from. 4 years ago, I founded Heal Your Hunger, and it's been so beautiful to be able to help so many women around the globe, follow this very simple step-by-step process for dealing with emotional eating. So that's what happened to me.
You are so fortunate. So when did you start experiencing your struggles? And then when did you find your mentor?
So I literally was 21 years old when I asked this man to help me. And which is a miracle, of course, because that's a very young age. And most of the women I help have been on the diet roller coaster ride for decades. But I just was kind of on this fast track. Like I was like a dog with a bone trying to figure out my problem, and I tried so many things in like such a short period of time, that I came to the conclusion, and I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I was sitting on the couch with a friend of mine. I just lost 40 pounds, and I was sitting on the couch with a friend. I had brought out a thing of grapes. I was on this very strict plan, so nibbling on grapes was not part of my plan. But I brought out this bowl of red grapes for my friend, and guess who ate them all? so I ate all the grapes, and I looked down in the bowl, and I thought to myself, oh my God, like I'm about to go back up the scale again, because I'd done the yo-yoing already a few times. I'd like lose 30, gain 20, lose 10, gain 30. I was all over the scale. So I just thought, oh my God, like I was doing great for 9 months, and I'm about to blow it. I could feel it. Like I was starting to slip. My resolve was slipping. And, when I look back at that time, that was really my moment of clarity. When I look back at the time, I can see that, I'd done this so many times that I could feel it when I was starting to just break out. Like I was on the verge of breaking out again and sabotaging. And I just thought, I can't keep doing this like this. I was only 21, right? So I'm thinking, this is my pattern. I've already done it 2 or 3 times, the up and down. I'm basically looking at the rest of my life. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life if I don't do something drastically different. And that's within 2 weeks, I met this mentor who showed me how to do this thing drastically differently.
Well, I'll tell you that you are a wise 21-year-old, because oftentimes they're not discerning, and they, I was not wise when I was young, and they just feel unstoppable and like whatever,
Yeah.
And then what did your mentor do? What was the next step for you?
So the next step was really to address emotional eating, to get completely off the diet track, stop trying to control food, manage my weight, just put the focus on the underlying stuff. So he showed me how to deal with my underlying issues. And that's a whole nother journey, but it's the real journey, like I was compelled to eat. I was compelled to sabotage, and so I learned why, and I learned what those underlying causes were. And I can sum up what they are in a very simple acronym, which is PEP. So I was using food for the first P in PEP as a painkiller. I was using food to kill emotional pain, which I had some emotional pain. I grew up in a great home. I'm very grateful to my parents, but I had sexual abuse from a relative. And of course, that kind of puts a twist on things at a young age, 5 years old. So I had that buried pain. And it's very typical if somebody has sexual abuse to bury it with food, and weight. And so that's one element of pain, but I had lots of different pain. I mean, I was insecure socially. I thought I was stupid. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was bad. I had a lot of really negative beliefs about myself. So, I mean, you wouldn't know it. I went to a really good school, I went to top college, and I was on varsity sports. So I was successful on the outside, but I had this dark inner, life going on. So he really helped me deal with that. And so food was being used as a painkiller to kill pain, which is why I would binge. So I binged on ice cream and cookies. I mean, all the sugar, fat, and starch, basically. And I'd feel sick. So food, but that's why we binge on that stuff, not on salads, because it would kill the pain, like would bury it, put a blanket over my emotional pain. Which I wasn't really even aware of. It was just a habit. But this is, taking a critical look at the underlying causes. This what was going on. Also, the E in PEP stands for escape. So I was using food to escape my reality because I was afraid. I had a lot of fear, and this is true for emotional eaters. We tend to have an inordinate amount of fear, and so food was a great escape. And I'll tell you right now, I think the pandemic exposed emotional eating in a bigger way than ever, because I think I had friends calling me who didn't even relate to what I did, helping people with emotional eating. They'd pat me on the head and said, "That's nice, honey," And then the pandemic hits, and they're calling me, and they're like, "Oh my God, like I'm an emotional eater too," because we're all, all of a sudden our reality is scary. Like you could walk out your door and get this terrible disease and die. And so people, during the pandemic have been really escaping their scary reality with, eating or drinking or pot smoking. I mean, there's shopping online. There's all kinds of ways we all started kind of freaking out and running from ourselves. But that's a big part of eating, and overeating is just quelling the fear and the worry with food. And the last thing in PEP, the last P stands for punishment. So we use food really on account of some deeper lying guilt that we carry. And I always say overeaters are overfeelers. So we feel guilt very easily. We beat the crap out of ourselves. We're constantly railing on ourselves. Why did you say that? I can't believe you did that. Or people think you're this, right? So we have these racing minds that never leave us alone. And so we feel bad about a lot of things, and we don't really have coping tools to properly process. And so we end up just beating ourselves up with food. And it's counterintuitive, Tracy, because initially we started thinking we're going to reward ourselves with food, right? Like, oh, you're going to get your favorite snacks and sit in front of your favorite TV show and have a lovely evening. But if somebody is like me and they go overboard and they eat the whole bag of popcorn and they eat the whole container of ice cream and they feel really sick afterwards, it begs the question, like, why would you do that to yourself? Like, why would you stuff yourself to the point of feeling completely sick? Like you're laying on the couch and, doubled over in pain. Like, what's that about? And it's that deeper guilt where we've got this self-sabotaging kind of dark side where we hate ourselves and we end up hurting ourselves with food. And it's, again, you wouldn't know this by looking at somebody ostensibly. These are, lots of people who are super successful in their life have this inner life, this other, really double life going on, because overeating is a secretive thing. Like we tend to binge in private or late at night, or, and we don't really let people know what we're doing because we're embarrassed. We're very ashamed. And of course, we think we're the only ones who do this kind of thing, where in fact, that's not true. Like hundreds of thousands of people are emotional eaters. Mm-hmm. But the PEP, just to wrap it up, the PEP is, so people can kind of take this PEP test. Like if people don't relate to emotional eating, but now after listening to this are going to be like, oh, maybe I'm an emotional eater. Next time of an evening when you're opening the refrigerator like 7 times, think, is there pain I'm feeling? Like, am I feeling uncomfortable feelings I don't want to feel? is there some fear or worry that's going on in my head, or am I feeling bad about something that I have to address, so the pain, the fear, and the guilt are three primary kind of umbrella emotions that often drive emotional eating. And again, we're not always aware of it, but hopefully, we're drawing some awareness to it so people can see, how much, I thought I just liked chocolate, but people are, it's really important to start saying, wow, there is an emotional relationship here. Like I'm using this food for far more than just nutrition.
Mm-hmm. I always say you got to check in with yourself and ask yourself what's really going on, because if you're lonely or sad or stressed, the food will only give you a temporary band-aid, not actually address what the lonely, the sad, or the stress. Like, let's work on that now,
Absolutely.
So talk about your book, Heal Your Hunger. When did you release that?
Yeah, trying to see if I have it on my shelf here. So the Heal Your Hunger book came out in 2017. It's on Amazon, and it's a great way for people to learn my system. It's called Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. This past summer, I recorded it on Audible, so people can hear me, going over the book on Audible. So it's my system. It's got great cartoons, and if you get the Audible version, you can't see the cartoons. That's the only drawback. But yes, it's really about my journey and how I've helped, thousands of women really face emotional eating. And actually I have men. I don't personally work with men, but my mentor does. And I've had men or women who have given my book to husbands, and husbands or men tend to be a little simpler than women, so they read the book, they're like, yeah, I can do this, and they do it, and they lose like 50 pounds. Whereas women, it really takes a lot more community. So I have the book, and then I have a lot of women who choose to really get support in implementing what's in the book through my coaching program. But yeah, it's a great start, though. It's a great way for people to really start to realize, wow, it's not about the food, and that's really my biggest message is there's definitely underlying stuff, and has to be addressed. And the fact is that this is not an eating problem, but a living problem. And so I give people a prescription for how to live differently. And what I mean by that, Tracy, I think this might be helpful for people to really understand what I mean, is that I have something called the anatomy of the emotional eater, which is personality traits, 24 personality traits, in fact, that make up the emotional eater's personality. And these have nothing to do with food. So I don't mean like, oh, we eat too much. Like, no, I mean like, like we show up in the world in a certain way that causes us stress that we then stress eat over. And so we have to, again, right out of the gate, we have to start going deeper. And so I'll give you the number one trait of these 24 traits, and it's people pleasing. Because emotional eaters are consummate people pleasers. So often as kids, we had trauma, we had things happen, and we had parents just didn't quite get the tools, to give to us. And so what we do is we lack a sense of ourselves. I lacked self-esteem as a kid. I had sexual abuse as a kid as well. And so I ended up looking for validation outside of me in my life. And that came in the form of people pleasing. So I always wanted people to think I was wonderful. And I wanted people to give me praise, get all those atta girls. And so the problem with people pleasing is that in order to please people, you have to kind of go above and beyond, right? So you take on other people's jobs, you do extra projects, you're always the one to raise your hand to host the party or do the driving or whatever. And you end up totally stressed out, totally overcommitted. Your adrenals are shot because you're not getting enough rest and you're always trying to please. But not only that, but you're also kind of pissed off because nobody's ever as pleased as we imagine they'd be. I'm thinking of all the accolades, and then people are like, oh, thanks. I'm like, thanks. Like, I pulled an all-nighter for this project, and so the combination of knocking ourselves out and being pissed off is the perfect prescription for what I call the I deserve it binge. So we go home and we're like, screw them. They don't appreciate me. I'm going to, just please myself with all this food. So that's a perfect example of how we have to change how we're living. Because if you just go on a diet and you're still a people pleaser and you're still running yourself ragged, trying to get people to be impressed with you, it's not going to work. Like, that's how you got overweight in the first place, so we've got to change how we're living, and it will impact directly how we're eating.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what are the other steps to your process? Is that the first step, or?
So the anatomy of the emotional eater, the 24 personality traits are definitely, I lay them out in the book. In my coaching program, people are doing writing assignments to work on that stuff. And just over time in my program, people are getting hip to, starting to put more boundaries on their time, starting to speak up for themselves. So the steps are, there's a lot of things, like one of the steps is communication, which is related to people pleasing, because so much of the time we don't say how we really feel about things. We don't say it, we stuff it instead. And so I teach people how to communicate, because it's something we don't know. So often we're just nodding our head and smiling and saying, oh no, I'm fine, and so we have to start being truthful and saying how we really feel in a nice, way, but we have to start owning who we are and the opinions that we have, and not be apologetic about it. So speaking up is one of them, right?
Right now, though, honestly, I feel like speaking up gets you in more trouble with some people than, like, I feel like I bite my tongue more than ever.
Well, it's a tricky thing, isn't it? So it's like, you kind of need to know when to say your truth, and there are ways to say it, own it, but not, offend. I always say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean, which I'm sure you don't say it mean either. But yeah, it is, right? So that's what I teach. Yeah, that's what I teach people, because the problem with emotional eaters is we don't say how we feel for years, right? So we're always trying to be perfect, or we go to a new job and we're like taking on all this extra work and we're so great. But then again, the resentment builds up, and then we're like a fire hose on an unsuspecting person, like the checkout person at the grocery store. Like we build up all this resentment because we're not honest as we go, and then somebody gets our wrath, so and of course we're always getting our wrath because we're beating ourselves up with food. We're stuffing it all the time. So it's, communication is really, really vital for emotional eaters. And it's beautiful to see people. I love seeing my clients just blossom, and they're like setting boundaries, and they're like saying, no, that doesn't work for me. Or like, I can help you, but not till next week. Or, they're starting to feel like their worth. And a lot of this comes down to self-worth. Like, people are starting to realize that they're worth taken care of. So another one of the steps is self-care, and getting centered in the morning, because so much of the time we start the day bolting out of bed, checking email, checking our phones, making phone calls, taking care of the kids, but we haven't started with ourselves. We start taking care of everybody else and ricocheting off of stressors in our life. And I tell people, you have to put money in your spiritual bank account, because, 75% of emotional eaters do most of their eating in late afternoon and into nighttime. Why? Because the stress of the day has piled up. And so I say to people, you've got to feed yourself first. You've got to get resources inside of you. And I call it your spiritual bank account that you can take withdrawals from at 4 p.m. because we all get a dip sometime in the afternoon. And that's when we reach for chocolate and coffee, and sodas and things to pick us up, give us quick energy. But that's because we're depleted, whereas if we start our day with meditation and prayers and spiritual reading, we're filling ourselves up. We're giving ourselves resources we can draw on throughout the day. And this is absolutely vital. I have a meditation practice I've had for over 30 years, and it keeps me centered. It keeps me filled up. And in the afternoon, I do it again. I meditate for 20 minutes, but it could be 10 minutes, for somebody just starting out. But instead of chocolate and coffee, I'm like, time out, close my computer. I go to the couch, I sit and I meditate for 20 minutes and boom, I've got energy again. I'm ready to meet the day, the rest of the day, because our days are long. We've got to have a break. I mean, we know kids need nap time. Well, so do we,
I
so
love it. I love that you just said that afternoon meditation. That's awesome.
game changer, total game changer. Yeah.
I
So
need to try that.
it's so awesome because it literally just re-energizes you. Get a little, there's the Insight Timer or Calm app on your phone, which it gives me a little gong, at the beginning and a gong at the end, and it kind of makes it a little more special. But boy, oh boy, just that break. My body, I'm so used to doing it now, Tracy, that my body just like it wilts. It wilts, and it's like just, it's like a dog that hasn't had water in a while. They're just panting for it, and that's how I am. I'm just so ready for that time out, and it does wonders for me. And then the rest of the day is fine, but I always tell people, if you want to lose weight, meditate, do your afternoon meditation, because I promise you'll eat like 200 calories less at dinner time if you take that time out. Because so much of the time we go to the kitchen after a long day, driving the kids around, work calls, stress, blah, blah, blah. And we go into the kitchen and we use food to calm us down. We use food to de-stress. We just sit there in a trance munching on chips. But that's because we're just trying to come down from that buzz of the day, that stress. So, if we bypass the kitchen and we go to our favorite place to sit, we go to our bedroom, and just tell the kids, mom's, taking a time out, and just like de-stress during that time, we'll go to the kitchen so much more like level, like so much, we'll already have gotten like thrown off a lot of that stress, and then we can be like with the food, we'll just be a lot saner.
That is a awesome tip. I love it. I'm going to try that one. Middle of the day or, late afternoon, just take 10 minutes to take the edge off of the day. That's a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
And then talk about your podcast.
Yeah, it's called the Heal Your Hunger Show. And what I do in the show, I mean, I have guests on the show, but most of the shows are me, I call it riffing. And it's basically any topic and any guest I have, it has to do with topics that are germane to the emotional eater's experience. And again, nothing diet. I'm not into diet stuff. Did you hear that? Hopefully I got that point across. So basically, but the shows I do, like I just did a show the other day, they all come from my personal experience. And so I'm always looking for ways that I can talk about the emotions and the process of healing on the emotional level, because that's really what the show's about. It's how to heal the underlying causes. So the other day, somebody reamed me like in a veiled way. I was at this meeting and somebody like sort of responded to what I said in a really kind of attacking way, but they didn't use my name. So it wasn't totally clear, but it was pretty clear. I checked it out with some other people. So I did a show on, and the title of the show was It's Not About You, and it is. And my point on the show is I had to process that and think, first I wanted to call her and say, were you talking to me? Like, what was that about? But I'm like, Tricia, just let it be. She had her stuff. Like, I didn't do anything to her. I was sharing from my experience. She had her stuff. It's not about me. Like, it's not about me. Like, let her, she was triggered in some way. That's her stuff. And as a recovered, people pleaser, that's not easy to do. Like, I want to go fix it and make her like me. And so I'm like, Tricia, leave it alone. And I did, and pretty quickly I just got over it. I'm like, that's her stuff. I don't know what was going on with her. I don't know who's shitting her Cheerios. Bottom line is not about me. But that same law, that applies to me too. So when I get triggered by somebody and I kind of go off or I say something not very nice or whatever, like, it's not because of them. Like, my thought is, oh, they made me blah, blah, blah. No, it's the same law. It works both ways. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If I'm triggered and upset by something, I need to see that it's not about them, it's about me. Like something inside of me is, put off or triggered, and let me dig into that. Like, why was I upset by that person? Like they weren't like trying to hurt me. Of course sometimes things happen, but in general, we react to other people based on our own experiences, and I love the saying, when we're hysterical, it's historical. When we're hysterical, it's historical. Meaning, so much goes back to how we grew up as kids, and what we learned as kids and the experiences and traumas we had as children. And if we don't address those, the train will keep coming around, and we'll run into situations where we're triggered. I call them hooks. When we're hooked, like we have these little hooks hanging out all over us, and people will say something and it'll hook one of our hooks, but there are hooks. So we got to dig into what those are, kind of where they go back to, and then we can get unhooked, where we're not triggered all the time. So, and it doesn't take 20 years of therapy to do this. I teach this all the time, a very simple process for doing this. So it's really powerful. And then we're free. Like, I don't want to be owned by other people and constantly feeling like people are talking about me or, firing at me or whatever. It's just like, I just want to be free from all of it, because the stress over that stuff and worrying what people think of me and trying to get them to change their opinion of me, all that stuff, that just creates stress that will drive me to stress eat. And again, back to the living problem versus the eating problem. It's the stress of how we live. It's the stress of how we think. Those are the things that drive me to eat.
Yeah, that is a really good point, because when you just said about she triggered your feelings and how it's not your problem, it's really hers, but it's always about that introspection. Like if it was totally not related to you at all, even though it was, right? But if it wasn't, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, haha, you're stupid person or whatever, right? But if it triggers something, then it's like, okay, why did that upset me? I like how you said that, because it's true. Like if she said, boy, you're this, big hot pink elephant, you'd be like, yeah, that's so funny. Like I'm not, but whatever, right? I know it's a weird example, but
no, but it's true. And if I have a history of being a hot pink elephant, I'd be like, she's calling me out, that bitch.
Where do you live, Tricia? Are you in LA?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles.
What part?
Brentwood.
Oh, okay. My son lives just right outside Santa Monica in West LA.
Okay, yeah, I'm basically West LA.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Awesome. Have you been there for a long time?
16 years, yeah.
And then where were you before?
I grew up in Massachusetts, so outside of Boston.
And what brought you to LA?
Weather, mostly weather, and people who just seemed kind of open-minded. I think I'm more of a California girl. I was never quite comfortable in the Northeast. I love the Northeast, especially Maine. Maine is, God's country in my opinion, but I don't like the cold. I hate the cold. I love sunshine. And I also just like the vibe. Like people are they're just really relaxed and have fun. And I'm like really into fun. So it's great.
That is awesome. I love it that you're really into fun.
Yeah.
I love it. That's all. Well, you're adorable and you're beautiful. And when I hear stories about beautiful girls feeling that way as a young girl, I relate to that. I mean, and it just makes me want to well up, because I started dieting at a really young age. I mean, fasting, starving myself. I did the iced tea diet in high school where I did nothing but drink iced tea. I mean, so I've totally hear what you're saying as far as all of that goes. So, but I love all the tips. I can't wait to read your book and go deeper and deeper inside of all of that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, you are a doll, and you are just you're getting to the root cause, which our modern society doesn't do that. And there's a gazillion diet books on the shelves of Barnes and Noble and, any other bookstore, right? But it's not just about the information. It's about what led you to get to where you are right now.
Absolutely. That's the only hope. We got to take that deeper dive. It's not comfortable and it's not intuitive for an emotional eater to start looking at stuff. We're used to running away from it. But if we want to have a truly different relationship with food, it's necessary. And then what happens for my clients is they end up being grateful that food brought them to this place, because their lives end up getting, when they apply this solution, their lives end up getting so much better all over. Because if you go deep and you heal at the deeper level, it has a ripple effect in all areas of your life, in your relationships, in your job. When you feel worthy, you get better treatment, you demand better treatment, every area of your life. So people end up feeling kind of glad that food was their teacher and got them to this place of transforming at this deeper level.
Ooh, I like how you said that. It's like people with cancer. They say that the cancer was the best thing to ever happen to them.
Yeah, it's really, it's because it's what we learn in the process of healing that just up levels our life all the way around.
Well said, girl. I could be friends with you if I lived in LA.
You gotta look me up when you come out and visit your son.
Yeah, I'm in NorCal, so up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So how can people find you other than going to West LA? But like, where are you online?
So I have a group on Facebook called The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating Now. So they can go on Facebook to join me there. And I do, as I said, I have this quiz, which might be a good place for people to start if they feel like there might be an emotional eater or a food addict. So you go to healyourhunger.com, HEAL, healyourhunger.com, and there's a pop-up quiz, and you can take the free quiz in like 2 minutes and get a personalized score. So it's a great way to start. And then, of course, always reach out if you want to have a conversation and see about really, fast tracking your results of overcoming emotional eating.
Aw, that's awesome. I know so many people need your help. So
yeah. And
fantastic.
then the Heal Your Hunger show. Since we've got podcast listeners here, just check out Heal Your Hunger on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever, wherever.
All your favorite podcast apps. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, girl, you're lovely. And I just so appreciate you for coming on our show today.
Thank
I
you.
love your whole spiritual morning and afternoon. I just thank you for those tips already. And I just want to honor you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. And I honor the amazing work that you do and who you are, because you've obviously been on a journey too. So thank you so much for what you do to serve so many people. And it's really been a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, you guys, that was an awesome interview. I cannot wait to go order her book right now because I want to learn all these tricks and tips that she has to offer. What an amazing lady. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Please head on over to iTunes, give us a rating and review, share the episode with a friend that you know might need this help from Tricia, and please go out there and love yourself to health today. Bye for now. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.